I would be a lot less afraid of it if I just knew what it was called.
Let's call it Steve.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. A bunch of books have just fallen down. This is a tag video, and it's a great tag video because tags are really cool prompts to get you talking about random books. And you're looking for something to answer the prompt. You go, oh, that'd be a nice one to talk about. And this is one about book titles. And there was one a few years ago, I noticed, on YouTube, which had a load of prompts based on titles. But this is one created by Heather Reeds. And Heather was someone I actually met in real life, which is really cool. One of the booktubers I've met in real life, because we both went down one weekend to help Sean D. Standfast pack his stuff ready for his move. So if you know Sean, he had a big move. And me and Heather were two of the people that helped him out packing stuff up and that. So it was really lovely to meet Heather, and we got on really well. And she did this tag, which is the winning title book tag. And it's all about celebrating book titles. And I thought it'd be nice to answer the prompts, do a little shout out to some other book titles I think are really cool, and a series where everyone in the series has got a great title. And then talk about my own books really quickly at the end as well. So just to start off with, let's have a look at these titles, these prompts. So the first one, by the way, the prefix for all of these prompts is, have you ever bought a book because of? But I'm going to go with something that Hannah did. So I'm going to link Hannah's video and a few other videos as well below. Hannah did she switched it to, what have you ever read a book because of blah, blah, blah. So most of these I have read, but there's a couple that I've bought, so I'll say if I haven't read it. So the first one is, have you ever read something with a funny title or because of a funny title? And yes, I've got some great examples here of funny titles. So we've got one of my favourite books, Yahtzee Crawshaw's We'll Save the Galaxy for Food. That is a great title. That draws you in. You know what kind of book it's going to be as well. It's irreverent. First time I've used that word today. It's irreverent. It's very funny. It's quite farcical. So if you like the idea of a farcical sci-fi thing that's definitely got its tongue in its cheek, then We'll Save the Galaxy for Food is definitely recommended. And then also this is one that Tom Holt is full of a great sort of pun laden titles, and this is Snow White and the Seven Samurai. It's a very good book, very funny, again quite farcical. It's a bit mad. He basically joins loads of different fantasy characters together in a ridiculous plot that involves some kind of portal fantasy, but with all these different classic characters all joining up together. But it's very funny and it's very good. So Snow White and the Seven Samurai is quite a cool title. So funny title. There's also, I wanted to talk about two Gain Wilson books as well. So I love this title. This is one of my favourite book titles. This is one of his cartoonist collections, and it's called And Then We'll Get Him. Which I just love that. It's such a great phrase. And then we'll get him. And this is the cartoon that went with it. So there's that one. And then another one that's clearly within the context of Gain Wilson's drawing. It's funnier, but it's I paint what I see. And clearly, you know, it's a joke about what he's seeing in front of him. So I Paint What I See is another great title. So that answers the first prompt. The second prompt is a shocking title. So I've got one here, and I've got a book that I read last year, but I haven't got it anymore. So I'll say that one first. So it's quite a shocking book in general, actually. It's about cannibalism. And that's a book called Tender is the Flesh. So quite a shocking title. I think tender is the flesh, especially if you know the context of why the word tender has been used. So Tender is the Flesh is quite shocking. And also, I found this awesome book, had to buy it. James N. Cain, author of Postman Always Rings Twice, Baby in the Icebox, and other short fiction. Baby in the Icebox. That's shocking. Why is there a baby in the icebox? Jesus. Okay, and then the third prompt is a book title that sounds like a line of poetry. And now I've got a few here because it's quite a lovely thing that some authors do. So the first one I thought of was Becky Chambers. She's quite good at giving book titles. And this is just a lovely phrase: the long way to a small angry planet. The long way to a small angry planet. It's just a lovely phrase. And a lot of her book titles have got really nice phrases. Like the third one was The Record of a Spaceborne Few. Psalm for the Wild Built is the first one in the Monk and Robot series. To Be Taught is Fortunate was her novella. You know, she's very good at doing these like little sort of poetic titles. And Harlan Ellison's very good at doing the poetic titles. So this is part of my Harlan Ellison collection. You've got Love Ain't Nothing But Sex Misspelled. So that is really cool. That's a kind of a Bukowski poetry line, isn't it? That's the sort of thing you would have written. The Beast That Shouted Love at the Heart of the World. What a great title. The Beast That Shouted Love at the Heart of the World. It's a good story as well. And then this one was the first Ellison book I ever bought. All the Sounds of Fear. All the Sounds of Fear. What a great phrase. All the Sounds of Fear. And I've got another one here, actually. The Long Habit of Living by Joe Haldeman. I love that phrase. The Long Habit of Living. The word habit is quite weighty there. The Long Habit of Living. So clearly these people are using words in a very clever and interesting and enticing way. The fourth one, I did make a little note. I didn't get it down from the loft, but also another one I'd suggest is quite a lovely poetic title, is The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I read after watching the film. So I watched the film, and it was one of those sort of formative films. When I went from like early teens into late teens, I started watching a lot of art house films, and I saw The Unbearable Lightness of Being in the cinema, and it blew me away. I really loved it, and that was probably where I first fell in love with Juliette Binoche as well. So anyway, the next one, enough about that. The next one is a title that makes you question. So I haven't read this, but I've got it somewhere. John Dies at the End, which is a brilliant title. And clearly it's a very deliberately provocative title. And I'm sure he sold a lot of copies of the book just from the title. So John Dies at the End is a really good one. And one that I've had in my collection for decades because I collect his stuff, Immortality Inc. by Robert Sheckley. That's another good one for that prompt. Okay, so the next prompt is a heartwarming or homey title. And this is actually quite a powerful and, I guess, downbeat novel, but I thought it was really, really good. It's different to what I normally read, a little bit out of my comfort zone. It's by Celeste Ng, and it's called Everything I Never Told You. And I think that's a brilliant title. Everything I Never Told You. I think it's very mysterious, but it is a very domestic book in the sense it's about a family, about their relationships. And I think that's in the title, Everything I Never Told You. Amazing book, I think. And then the next prompt, number 6, is a title with lots of contradictory words in it. So I've got the Glass Teat by Harlan Ellison, which is his rants about television. The Glass Teat. That's an amazing, powerful title, I think. The Glass Teat. And also another one which, again, I didn't want to spend time looking for it, but it's one of my favourite books, and that is The Man Who Folded Himself by David Gerald. That's a fantastic book. But again, The Man Who Folded Himself sounds a bit odd, contradictory. So there's that one. The 7th prompt is a book with a fantastic or magical title. And I thought I'd go with a book that I think has got there's something about the rhythm and the wording of the title that they're always stuck in my head, even though I don't think I've owned a copy of this book for quite a while, but it was a seminal book when like a formative book, if that's the right word, when I was reading lots of fantasy. I read a lot of the Thieves' World series by Robert Asprin. And this was one of them, called Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn. Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn. I love that phrase. So clearly the Vulgar Unicorn is a pub, and Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn is that book. So it's a collection of short stories. That's that title. Okay, so number 8 is like a oxymoron kind of title. So opposites, title with opposites in it. And I've got 2 examples. So there's Stephen Graham Jones' My Heart is a Chainsaw, which I still haven't read. So I did buy this. Partly, I guess I was probably prompted by the reputation of the book, but it is a very enticing title. That My Heart is a Chainsaw. So Stephen Graham Jones's very acclaimed book, My Heart is a Chainsaw. And this is a book I really am pleased to talk about again. I talked about this on the channel in one of my wrap-ups, I think. Love and Vermin by Will McPhail. Love and Vermin. These are really good one-panel cartoons by a British comedian who contributes to the New Yorker. So Love and Vermin, Will McPhail. So that's a really good book as well. So just to finish off the stuff of other people, I wanted to talk about a few other book titles that are really cool. This is actually a book I bought recently because of the title. I did see Ollie talk about this from Criminally, but it's just such a great title. So I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom. And to be fair, the book sounds really interesting anyway, but it's such a great title. I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom. So there's that. And then some shout outs to some random books that I think have got really cool titles. So sometimes the Hard Case Crime series do a really good bunch of puns in their title, or at least phrases that they twisted a little bit to fit with the plot of the book. So this is cool. This is Forever and a Death. Obviously, the phrase you'd normally get is Forever and a Day. I haven't read this one yet, but I've read others by Donald Westlake, and I think he's really good. So Forever and a Death is quite a cool one. Again, someone else that I've read everything else I think he's done except this one, Andrew Kaufman, and that's The Waterproof Bible, which is just, again, great title. He is most known for All My Friends Are Superheroes, which is a fantastic book. It'll take you about an hour and a half to read it. It's very short, but it's brilliant. And then a British celebrity kind of personality on TV and stuff over here, Sandy Toksvig. She wrote a book called Hitler's Canary, which is clearly deliberately titled to get you wondering what the hell the book's about. So Hitler's Canary, and it is a farcical book. She wrote lots of theatrical farces as well for the West End, as well as being a TV personality. So Hitler's Canary is a great title. This book is a book I've had for ages, and I still haven't got around to reading it, which is ridiculous. But it's such a cool title. And this by Chris Chen, and it's called Waypoint Kangaroo. And it's about wormholes, and going into different dimensions and stuff, I think. But I still haven't read it yet. Waypoint Kangaroo. What a great title. It doesn't tell you a lot, but it's definitely a cool title. Just a book that literally does what it says on the tin, but it is one of my favourite books, Mind Swap, and that literally sums up the plot. But it's a very funny book, so I'd recommend it. Robert Sheckley's Mind Swap. If you get a chance to read it, it's quite a short, little fun read, but if you want to read it, it's fantastic. So there's that one. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Chronicles of St. Mary. So I've only got this one out here because this is I'm on book 8. So this is the 8th book. But all of the titles in this series are like puns on history. So we've got them all here. So I'll just read out. I know the first one was a pun based on what I can't remember who it was, but somebody famously said what history was. And they said, history is just one damn thing after another. And that's what the first book is called, just one damn thing after another. And then you've got, what else have you got? No Time Like the Past, sorry, No Time Like the Past, Lies, Damned Lies and History, and the Rest is History, which is this one. What Could Possibly Go Wrong, that's another title. You get the point. They're really good titles. They're humorous books. They're time travel books where everything goes wrong when they go back in time and have to try and somehow fix it or do some kind of recovery somehow. And the main character, Maxine, is very good in it. So I would recommend the series if you want a light read that's almost kind of YA-ish, but I think that does it a disservice. But the Chronicles of St. Mary has all got good titles. And I want to just briefly say something about my books. So these aren't all the books I've self-published, but they're most of them. And I was going to talk about the thinking behind the titles. So I'll start with the easy thing, because my poetry books, the titles kind of spoke for themselves, really. That was my first collection, Permanent Verb, which is the title of one of the poems. But also the poem Permanent Verb was about me, kind of sums up my kind of constant activity, my need to always do stuff. I mean, now I'm looking into the ADHD thing, but that's where the kind of the idea of Permanent Verb comes from. So I thought it was a nice way to title the book. It's quite a positive poem in some ways, but there is a lot of kind of mental health stuff in that. It's a little bit of a downbeat collection. But that was my first collection of poetry. And then this one, Voices of the City, it's called Voices of the City because it was an attempt to literally portray lots of different characters in a city through poems, where each poem was a different person in the city. So the idea was that, you know, the combination of all the different poems would hopefully touch on different kinds of lives, different ages, different occupations, different preoccupations, different things that motivate people, or different things that bother them during the day. I mean, there's one poem about a guy who's just watching the clock. He wants his lunchtime and all that. So, you know, it's different things. There's another one of someone on the bus who's very paranoid about the way that they're being stared at and stuff. So Voice of the City, the kind of title spoke for itself. But these, obviously, I could have named my short stories and novels anything really. But once I had written a few of the short stories for this collection, I realised that they started having a bit of a theme. So most of the stories in here, to some, you know, to varying degrees, fit into the definition of 10 tales of transformation. Some people absolutely transform in these stories, and some there's like a more of a light transformation, maybe a psychological transformation, or a sort of some sort of growth in a relationship or something like that. So yeah, that's where that comes from. I mean, Ethel Bingeworthy definitely goes through a transformation. And this was my first novel. And this was an interesting situation where Out Among the Ice Beacons was the title that came while I was writing it, because there's an incident in the book about 3/4 of the way through the book where one of the characters is publicly, publicly displayed after being killed by the government. Ish. You'll know if you read it. And I wrote the phrase "out among the ice beacons" because the ice beacons are actually part of the setup of where they live. And I just really liked the phrase, and I thought actually the whole book is out among the ice beacons. So I thought it'd be nice to kind of call it that. So once I'd written the phrase in the book, that was like, that's what the book's going to be called. So I called it Out Among the Ice Beacons because of a phrase that I wrote in the book. And in this one, this is also part of the motivation for the video, because on a live stream I did yesterday where I read from this book, someone asked me, and I honestly apologise, I can't remember who it was that asked me. They asked me why I called the band the Brown Yelp Gang. So this is the band. And I kind of fumbled to try and think of, well, why did I come up with those words? I mean, it's clearly, this book is intended to make you laugh. And I think the Brown Yelp Gang is a funny name for a band. And brown is, you know, a brown sound is not a good sound. And Yelp is not a good sound from a voice. And the Brown Yelp Gang, it just sounds like, I'm trying to give off the idea that it will be funny. So, you know, try and give off the tone of the book, if you like, from the title. So that was my motivation for the title for that. And I am hoping to start the sequel to that soon, which is going to be called The Brown Yelp Gang Go to Pieces. And that's because the band split up. So, spoilers. So anyway, book titles are amazing, and there's so many others I could have included. This hopefully might have been quite entertaining, the idea that some of these books have these great titles. You may know some of those books. Please comment below if that sparked off any ideas that you've got of some great book titles. And thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, everybody.
future.